Hello, everybody.
Already my nose.
Welcome to the
There we
RU
go.
Screening Podcast. I'm your host, RUScreening.com's own Mark Eastman. And with me, as always, is co-host extraordinaire Shane Leonard.
Hello.
I had to get that out of the way for the podcast people because we're going to be using the audio for this to suck it right out and continue the podcast, which we've been doing for a long time. But for those of you who may have just stumbled across us in Videoland,
Right.
and don't know anything about us, I thought we should do like a kind of a little introduction anyway to the show.
Yeah.
I am a movie critic. I'm a Critics' Choice Awards critic, and I've been doing movie reviews for about 25 years. And the deal with our show, when we started out, we were practically live from like seeing movies. When we first started doing this, it was called the Instant Reaction Review Podcast,
Blast,
which
actually.
was a long time ago. We eventually kind of gave up that format in a way, but what we would do is we would do the podcast a lot of times within an hour of having seen the movie. We would go see a movie and like boom. And the idea of it was, instead of a podcast where you have long-winded movie critics who write 1,500 words,
Right.
which I am one of.
We could be them.
Which is me.
Yeah.
But instead of that, I wanted to do a podcast. I didn't want to just go, well, here's my review, but now I'm just talking about it on a podcast.
I'll just read it out loud.
So instead, we wanted to be a little bit different from that. So the idea was just whatever like popped into our mind, like as we're walking out of, it's like the conversation as you're walking out of the movie theater, and we would just kind of go. And we have been doing this now for like 15 years.
It's a while, man. It's
somewhere around there. And we have never had a script.
Ever.
We don't have like our little monitor over here that we're like reading what we're doing. Every week we have no idea what's going to happen. It will be apparent. Yeah, exactly.
You'll see. There is no secret behind the sausage here. We're just, to our credit, in a lot of ways, it's off the top of our head.
Yeah.
Just whatever you say, whatever I say, we react to it and then move on.
And so this week, I guess, now that this is like the first week that we're doing the video, you're not exactly going to get that because this is the best of the year list, which, we'll have some of that, and still there's no script.
Right. I mean,
there's no script except note card.
You've got note cards. I've got some things written down on my phone, but it's not, it's not as if to say, okay, talk about Avengers and Infinity War.
Right.
Read the following.
We've done something.
I haven't prepared anything because I feel like part of that also is I know what I liked about the film. Why did it make my list, or why did it not? I had fun with it. I had this. I thought about it. These things. Like, we really not, like, when I see those cards, I think
you're like, what's happening?
I'm not prepared for the test today.
Yeah.
But in essence, this is how the show is. So
yeah, and so when we're actually doing a movie on here, that is kind of what it is. We start off with just very briefly, like the summation of the movie or whatever, and we really just go.
Yeah.
And neither one of us have really talked about it. We try really hard to not even talk about it at all.
Right.
So
sometimes it's hard.
Even like what we are going to rate.
Yeah.
Movie, like we don't.
Oh, I don't know. I like not knowing. I like just sitting here being like, "Are you kidding me?"
Your gig is that you've picked all mine beforehand.
I love to try to.
You go, no, that's not what I have.
Over the years, I used to just come in cold and just be like, "Man, are you kidding me?" But because I think about the show a bit, again, we don't do a lot of pre-production. I sometimes will write down like, I'll give this a 6, but man, Mark hates a voiceover. This is probably going to get a 5. And then it's just fun for me to see how close I get. It's like my own little private Price is Right. Did I get close enough without going over?
And so for the people who are just stumbling into this on video and haven't been listening to the podcast, we come pretty close a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, just to know that, I guess, going into future episodes where we'll have reviews.
Right.
If you want to see us disagree a lot, you can go back to our last podcast where we tried to run through a ton of movies in one episode, because usually we do like maybe two,
Yeah.
but usually we really, the ideal is we just do like one movie and talk about it for a long time.
Right.
But last week we were finishing up to get to this, our best of the year list, and we went through a lot of movies.
We went through like 5, I think.
And man, did we have like a lot of disagreement.
It was almost like
we
half.
were far apart.
If you were 8, I was 4. If
Right,
you were like 9, I was maybe 5. Like it was a big gulf.
And it was, and like I say, we disagree. We don't disagree that much.
No, these are the funny things because we're not scripted. I actually had my girlfriend read your synopsis off the podcast.
Oh,
where you were just like, we do these things, and either I'm really off or Shane's really angry this week. What? And she just thought that was really funny. So
yeah, I mean, it was. So, like I said, we agree most of the time. But last week when we did the show, I thought you were like punking me at one point. Eventually, it was just like everything. You were like so far away, and even if we disagree, it's like 2 or 3 stars, maybe,
and that can be big enough.
And
sometimes.
Then you were like, well, no,
yeah, man, you really like this. I can't forgive it.
Like, come on,
and I'm not normally, not that we're, well, it's not that we're Statler and Waldorf in the Muppet, really wings, but I think I'm sometimes, that's so weird. That's almost a double negative. I feel like I'm more likely to just be like, they tried. And you're like, that's not okay. Like you're a bit harder on things. But man, last week our drinks were switched. I was really hard, and you're like, come on. Like it was fine.
It was.
Yeah, it was weird.
Okay, so all that out of the way, we're just going to jump into doing our list. And
this is how prepared I am. I'm literally writing the list down right now. Like I know it, but I'm giving the bullets so that when we reveal it to each other, and that's that's the show. And in a weird way, I don't know what our show would be like if we were.
You're like right now. You're like on IMDb going, what are some good movies?
Yeah, what came out last year? Give it to me. Star Wars was fun,
right?
But I don't know what the show. I don't know if we would have as much fun with it if we were scripted out. Like if we really had.
Yeah.
During the course of the week, I sent you my script. You sent me yours. We edited each other and be like, okay, I want to talk about this.
I have a funny line.
The line edits. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, it would just be so weird. I like the off the cuff conversational.
Yeah, I've even thought about it. It's funny because
it's when you tell me you're like, going scripted.
I guess for YouTube videos of having movie reviews, as a podcast, people have asked for us to do this over the years.
Yeah.
And who knows if anyone cares or actually really wants to watch the YouTube video of this. But I have over the years thought about, like at least making some bullet points and stuff.
Yeah.
There were even a couple of episodes where I had them.
Yeah.
And then like, just as we like start the show, I'm like,
nah. I mean, we'll get to it.
Because it's kind of, there have been weeks where as soon as we're done with the show, I'll be like, oh, I didn't mention, whatever.
Right.
But, anyway, so we're going to just jump into the list.
All right.
Before we do that, we have to, the obligatory, if you're brand new here to this brand new show, especially, if you're coming from the podcast, please like us here, hit the buttons, subscribe, do all the what's-its. I'll probably make something flash on the screen right here. Subscribe or something.
I'll get better at pointing at things.
So before we jump into the list, I have like a huge list of.
Right. Yep.
And for those who aren't familiar, haven't been listening to us for years in order to have heard other best of the years list. So I've got a bunch of movies that are kind of like the, I don't know, the also rans or, whatever you want to call it. But they are not, this is not like the top 20 because we're going to do top 10, right?
We do top 10.
It's not like these are the 20 next ones necessarily, right?
Right.
Like the things that just barely didn't make it on the list will obviously be in here. But also I like to throw out like a few other things that are just like, this was really good. It's nowhere near the best of the year, maybe.
This isn't 15, but it's
still,
I liked it.
It's something worth mentioning. So I will, I'll jump in. I got actually, and before we start the list too, usually I will say some bitchy comment about the year.
That's true. That is true. Why change?
I don't know why not change it.
Why not
Really,
change? That's true.
it's a
That's
hard
fair enough.
question.
That's cool.
But this was for me as far as lists. We might as well say this every year too. I hate making lists.
Oh yeah, right. We haven't done this.
You love
I
making lists.
love making lists.
You would make a list if we could have half the year
Oh
be
yeah.
like,
Let's do the midway year.
random word generator.
Best of
And
spring.
then, yeah. And you'd be like, boom, I got that.
What's the 6 things you thought were great this week? All day. I love lists. Yeah.
And I hate making lists, which it seems like it should be obligatory that if you're a movie critic, you should like listing the 10 best
Yeah.
because that's the thing.
It just feels like it's part of the
Hooray, right?
deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hate it because it becomes so weird, right?
Yeah.
If there were an unordered list of here's a bunch of good movies, right?
Right.
But when you get down to making the list, and then you're like, well, is this 3 or is this 4?
That's where I
Or
live.
you've got the list and you're like, okay, here's 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Which one's better between these two?
And
what
why?
order I put them in?
Yeah.
And they're like 2 of the most
Yeah.
different movies ever.
Yeah.
Right. You've got like MASH and Gosford Park.
Right. Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, which one's better?
Yeah.
And anyway, that drives me nuts. And so usually what happens is I've got like the top 3 and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, those work for me.
I know it. Yeah. Right.
Those are fine, right? And I usually don't have a lot of trouble, right? Going, which one's 2 and which one's 3?
Yeah.
Then it's like, is this 7?
Yeah.
Or is
6,
it
7, 8.
4? Or is it
Oh,
like,
love it.
I hate doing it at all. And
Yeah.
so the caveat every year is I do not stand behind my list
Yeah.
in any sense of the word. It's like,
Right. That's true. This is good for this moment.
don't leave comments
Yeah.
and say that was 7 instead of 9. Bullshit.
Right.
Fix it.
Bring those
Make
to
it
me.
right.
I love that.
I'll
Yeah.
just be like, you're right.
I think I actually I remember the first time I floated this and you thought about it for about a second. I remember you just like, yeah, no. Like I was like, we should do a best list. And you're like, yeah, no. I don't like lists. And I went, okay, well, thanks for thinking about it, and then I don't know if somebody, because we love emails and we love messages and response. I don't know if somebody else was like, yeah, where's your list? And you're like, oh, right, this sucks.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I lobbied that hard. I was like, all right, but I'm like, let's list everything.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah. So the counter to that, if you go to artyscreening.com, check out the reviews and all that stuff. There is like, I don't even remember anymore because I made it a long time ago, but it's like the 50 best of the decade.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's like all kinds of lists you can find.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
You just have to do it. Right.
And it's fun. Again, we're actually going to get to the list, but it's fun too when the end of the year kicks, you start looking at people's lists. And for you specifically, like you get annoyed because there's a lot of idiot lists out there and people really are like, I don't know if virtue signaling is the right word, but they're like, oh, we have to champion this. And I'm like, you didn't even see that because when you wrote about it, you talked about nothing that was in the film. I still love looking at lists because then I'm looking at people and I'm thinking, so you put Amsterdam on your worst list. And I thought that was the best film I saw last year. So let me see what you think the worst film is.
Right.
And if it isn't Attack of some Clones or some crap, then I'm never going to look at your. I'm not going to look at your reviews ever again because now I know everything I need to know about you. It's a fantastic weeding out device.
It is. I think it does serve that purpose really well. If you have like those extreme cases,
possibly right.
If
they're not always that cut and dried.
If you have the right list,
yeah,
right. But sometimes you look through and you maybe search through like 30 lists.
Yeah,
they're all practically the same.
They're almost all the same.
And then it's like
Zero Dark 30 is the best film. And
what
you're
do
like,
I find out from that list or whatever, right? Like what
do
I learn about you?
Yeah.
Which that just also bugs me.
Yeah.
So anyway, the other thing really that I wanted to say about this year is I feel like this had to be like a horrible year in movies.
Yeah.
Even though there are these big movies that everybody loves, like Oppenheimer is
Barbie,
people are
everything.
talking
Yeah.
and Killers of the Flower Moon, or
Right.
there's like these big things that many people love or whatever. But overall, which also, go back to previous episodes of the podcast to find out why a lot of those aren't on our list, or
Yeah.
a lot of some big things anyway aren't
Right.
on our list. But even though it's got like the big, whatever, uh, it has to somehow be a really bad year because my list was really easy.
You're getting better at it. You
It
love it.
was so,
No,
it was
I
really
know what you
crazy
mean.
because I made my list, but usually
Yeah.
I have like 30
Oh yeah, right.
about,
And then you have to
right?
read them out. Yeah.
And then I have to go, and even though I have 30, I probably have like, 3 or 4 that already are like, obviously
Right.
those are,
Yeah.
in the top 10. Um, but I have to like kind of narrow it down. I have like a lot of movies. I have to jump around with what goes where a
Yeah.
lot,
Right.
and I have to spend like a
I know.
insane amount of
More time
time
than you
that I
like.
hate
I know. I was gonna say more time than you don't
doing
like.
it. And my worst of the year list, because we do worst of the year, and even though
Mhm.
recently that was like all over the internet where people were like, people who make worst of the year lists suck and whatever.
Go home. I do it. Make one every
Bagging
day.
on people's things when
Efforts and
nobody tries to make a bad movie and all this stuff. And I'll
that's
tell
not
you what,
true.
right? I'll call bullshit
That's
on
not
that.
true.
People do try to make bad
Yeah.
movies and they succeed.
Right.
Anyway,
We got a list of them.
yeah. But my worst of the year list. So it's a bad year because I was just bored making my worst of the year list. I was like, yeah, I mean, that was bad, so fine. But it was a boring list of
Right.
worst movies. There was nothing that was, oh man, that was so bad.
Right.
Or,
Yep.
I don't know, what. It was a really weird year. And altogether, I did not have I usually have so many movies that I'm like, "Well, I gotta get people to see this,"
Yeah.
or, whatever, and it was a weird year.
I mentioned this to you last night real quick, and I don't know if I exactly remember the point I wanted to say about it, but when we talked about it, which can be now and then when we do the worst list by itself, I had the same feeling. I didn't hate anything the way in previous years I have
Yeah.
hated something. Like Rise of Skywalker, I hated, and I hated everybody associated with making it. And I was like, this is easy. I hate this film. And here's why. It is always going to be the worst film of this year. This year, when I was looking, I just went, I don't feel that strongly about a lot of you, though I dislike so many of you. So I guess line up and I'll see if you're in the right order and then we'll move with it. But I did not have the vitriol, the flair there where I knew everything else is behind this.
Right.
It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird year. All right. So we're going to do like the
The best.
the runners up and
Oh yeah, right.
And I don't know, do you have any do you have a list of like,
I got a small list that I call
like
just
big
missed.
list. Yeah, the just missed. I have a big list of just missed things.
You
At least
you go.
comparatively.
Yeah.
For me. I had like a lot of movies. Okay. And so we won't like really go over these too much, but in the description in the video, I will have either like links to my review or links to our episodes where we covered these. So you can jump to the podcast episodes at least, or whatever. You can find out
that's cool.
more about it. Okay. So and we're gonna run through these really quick. But my first one is Sisu.
Yeah.
Which is a really odd movie in its way. And a movie that there's a lot of stuff I don't like about it.
Yeah.
But overall, it was like a crazy fun time. It's not like I'm saying, it's not like 11 and it like just missed being best of the year or anything. But it's a crazy fun movie.
Yeah.
And it was like such a weird kind of surprise because some of the stuff that happened, you're like,
yeah,
all right. And then some of the stuff that happened, you're like, come on, now you're now you're just checking boxes and whatever. Like there were parts of it that I didn't like, but overall it was great. Okay, and then next, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
which was
Almost exactly a year ago. Like that was an early
yeah, it
spring, late
was
winter film.
surprisingly fun.
Yeah.
Especially for being a Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yep.
Like it had a bunch of fan service type stuff. Like we have to throw this in.
Oh yeah,
They have
right.
to do
The
this and
Sword
that.
of Everlasting Love or whatever. With
Yeah,
like
we have
all
to
kinds of
have
trinkets.
whatever.
Yeah.
But still, it was just weirdly fun movie.
Yeah.
Like it could have been. It really felt to me like somebody wrote like a fantasy storyline and had like kind of just a halfway decent adventure thing, and then they were like, "Ah, let's D&D that," and they like,
Right. What would this look like in a D&D
yeah,
filter?
and then they just I don't know, like it was where most of the time you have something D&D and it's like, I don't know, let's write something. It doesn't matter. How
Right.
hard do you have to try? Because all the D&D fans are
They're
going
gonna
to watch
come.
it
Yeah.
or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
I don't know. And it was cool and fun. And okay. And then next is Dream Scenario, which
Oh,
is
the Nick Cage one.
Nick Cage one where everyone in the world starts dreaming about him. We talked
Yep.
about this, I think, last week,
Yep.
or if not,
2 weeks ago. It was
before.
pretty recent.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's weirdly fun. It's not nearly as good as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could have pretty easily been better, but it was like, first of all, it could like kind of zip by. It's like a
Yeah.
decent time, and it's interesting and weird.
Yeah.
It's very Nick Cage.
It's very Nick Cage, man. Oh man, that's a Nick Cage film.
Okay. And then other two that are kind of bigger ones that maybe are pretty close but didn't make it is Oppenheimer,
Wow, this is big.
which
Didn't even make the top 10, and that's like in 3 of everybody's list, but that's not surprising.
I know, but
Not for you,
yeah. So
which isn't derogatory.
Obviously, the people who have not been listening to the podcast all
Right.
the time, I'm not a huge fan of the biopics anyway,
Right.
unless like especially recently. I mean, it's always been a thing forever,
Yeah.
right, in movies, but especially recently in like the last 5 years, it really seems like, we're throwing a dart at a board of names.
Yeah.
And it's like, does that person really need a story? I don't know, but I bet I'll make a bunch of money.
That I can find. Yeah.
Oscar Beatty thing and
Yeah.
whatever. And I know this movie like really sucked a lot of people in.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, this is a very interesting story about this very interesting guy. And I was like, I don't know.
And they didn't convince you.
But I'm not the guy for those kind of movies most of the time. But when I am, then I am. When you really do a movie and it's, and it is, I think, like for me, a more interesting story.
Yeah.
I just didn't, this could be like your neighbor and he did a thing and you're like, well, hooray for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, and then Saltburn, which
that's another big one on many lists.
It is, but Saltburn is a lot more hit or miss. I think there are a lot of people who totally love it, and a lot of people who are like, meh. Yeah,
no, that's
like
true.
5.
That's true.
Whatever. And I don't agree. I'm in the middle, but it wasn't quite on the list. And it's Emerald Fennell.
Yeah,
and I really like everything else.
Yeah,
that has come from Emerald Fennell.
Yeah,
I really liked what's the last year's one?
Promising Young Woman.
Yeah, Promising Young Woman.
Yeah,
I really like that. I feel like I like that even more than most people.
Yeah.
But yeah, something about this one, and not to spoil it or anything, but something about this one where it was like it was all this build up to this like, here's the end. Like I'm M. Night. I gotta throw in some weird shit at the end or whatever. I just was like, I didn't feel as much as I thought a lot of it was good.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought the acting in it was really good.
Yeah.
Even if what you had to do was really freaking weird for no real reason.
Right.
Like even when you get to the end, right? He didn't have to be that loony.
Right.
For what we're saying.
I was already there for most of it. Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel like it actually earned anything with the ending.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, how could you not see the ending coming?
Yeah.
That was my thought watching it. I'm like, you get about halfway through and you're like, well, I know everything that's going
Yeah.
to
Right.
happen. By the time this is, it's so obvious, a lot
Yeah.
of it, but still, it's really good. I mean, it looks great. It has many scenes that are fantastic. If you had like just that scene,
Yeah.
and what's his name? I can't remember.
Billy Kilgan.
Yeah, yeah. He's
He's awesome.
he's really, really fantastic to watch.
Yeah.
Especially there are some scenes where he just like kind of
He's
a threat.
beyond awesome.
Yeah.
He's popping up in everything. Just saw him. I mean, it's not like a weird cameo, but even in the new show Masters of the Air.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Watching him just suddenly, because I wasn't paying attention to the credits, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap, Hogan's here.
Right, right.
He's in everything. Like, and he's great in everything.
Okay, and then let's see what we got. So Bottoms is another one.
Yeah.
Which is Emma Seligman.
Yep.
And a couple of years ago, she did the movie Shiva Baby.
Yep.
Which also was fantastic. And I really this movie, like, at certain times came pretty close to being
Really? To being
in my list
in the
because
best. Yeah.
it's so weirdly
Mm,
fun. And it's got parts, also that I don't love.
sure.
It's got parts where I'm like, I feel like if we had a little bit more experience, we'd have taken these two scenes,
Yes.
reworked them,
It made one great scene.
whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. But still, it's really funny, and it just felt like it was very close to being a movie where you could go, this is like this generation's
Right.
something,
So
whatever, Breakfast Club or something.
right. No, I know.
It was, and it like hooked me kind of.
Yeah.
And I really kind of didn't expect it to.
Yeah.
Like, I expected to go, this is probably pretty good.
Yeah.
I bet I'll like this because I, loved Shiva Baby,
Right.
which I thought was better.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's that movie. Okay, Theater Camp.
Oh yeah.
Is really goofball.
I haven't
It's
thought
not a
about that.
movie that's like really close to being in my list,
Right.
but it's fun and it's really funny at times.
Yeah.
It's Ben Platt, Noah Galvin, Amy Sedaris is in it, Molly Gordon, Nick Lieberman. It's exactly what you think it is, probably just from the name of being theater camp, right?
Yeah, right.
It's theater camp and hilarity ensues.
Sure. Right.
And,
You know what's in the film.
but it has like, some really solid lines
Yeah.
that I don't know if anybody sees the movie would be like, things you would instantly quote,
Right.
kind of like
Right.
lines. It's really funny.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, and then I got a couple more here.
Do it.
God, I might have even more than a couple more. Okay, Fingernails.
You got a lot of cards. Fingernails.
I do. I have
I love it.
I have my script right here.
Yeah.
Fingernails. It's Jesse Buckley, Riz Ahmed, Luke Wilson, Jeremy Allen White, who also is in everything. I think this is like his 5th movie of the year. Plus, he's got a TV show.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah. Right.
just
He's working.
absolutely
Right. He's everywhere. Man,
and it is
Fingernails.
a really kind of interesting movie. Which, if this movie had just kind of like pushed the envelope like a little more,
Yeah.
it's a movie about like we have the technology of matching people.
Yeah.
Where we, run your DNA through a computer and go,
Right.
that's your
soulmate.
exactly.
Go get him.
Yeah, that's your soulmate. And this girl who is into it,
Yeah.
she's like, sweet,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Right.
Except she's like, wait, is this working?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and then again, hilarity ensues, right? It's
Fingernails was I knew there was a film because you even asked me about this weeks ago. Fingernails wasn't like Oppenheimer level, but Fingernails was a film I wanted to see for the lists because I thought it feels like it's adjacent to the world of The Lobster. It feels kind of like it might be the cousin of The Lobster.
right.
I just loved the concept of The Lobster anyway, and Fingernails just sounded fun. I never saw it.
Oh,
Never
yeah.
saw it. That's the one that got away.
Yeah, it is. It's really good,
Oh, that
and
sucks.
it's
I meant to see it.
one of the things that I both do and don't like about it is that the pacing is weird. Like
Oh,
sometimes
okay.
it's like rushing along, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, wait,
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's I feel like it was done well though. I think it was like
Yeah.
using the pace like purposefully,
Still gonna see it, but
but still, whatever.
yeah.
Okay, and then let's see, I got all these stupid things. Paint,
Oh yeah.
which is really not great.
Yeah.
So
Came this close.
so take that.
Though.
No, no, it's not a real good movie because I feel like the script is just like very
Everywhere.
rushed.
Yeah.
And it is. It's kind of everywhere, and it's trying to be like a lot of different things, and it's trying to do a lot of different stuff that it doesn't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
But it's Owen Wilson, and he is basically like this knockoff
Bob Ross.
yeah.
Yep.
And but then someone comes along who like kind of ousts him. Like
Yeah.
this woman comes in who's like better than him and like kind of more charismatic than him,
Yeah.
gets better ratings. Next thing you know, like he's out of a job,
Right.
and clarity ensues.
There we go.
And you've got like you've got like this weird side of Bob Ross, which is like, whatever.
Right.
Anyway, and Stephen Root's in it. And he's always awesome.
Yeah.
But it is really fun. It is not going to kind of like take over and you're going to go, yeah, I love that movie.
Right.
Like it's just not even trying to be that,
Right.
and it's got like a lot of flaws, and there are a lot of parts in it where I feel like I don't know the background of it. Like it's some kind of vanity thing. Like Owen Wilson had some bug in his hair to
right. I want to do Happy Little Trees.
I have to do I want to just say happy accidents or
right.
little clouds, whatever. So I don't know what it is, but it feels like a movie that is like a little too close to itself. It's like somebody wrote it who
that's a good way
wants
to put
it
it.
too much,
Right.
Yep. And they're like and they don't see things in a kind of a way where they can pull themselves back from it, because it's like that scene is awesome to me, and everybody else watches the scene and goes, I mean, yeah, right.
Okay, you say so.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But it is really fun. So it's one of those where when it pops up on wherever, at some point check it out.
Yeah,
like
check it
it's
out.
not like hey,
don't stop. Yeah, don't stop your day. But
okay, and then I got two more. Nimona, right up there.
Oh yeah.
Which is Chloe Grace Moretz is the voice actor. It's animated, Netflix.
Yeah.
It's about whatever, the screwy world where this she can change into all sorts of animals and everything. Yeah. And which makes her like the demon from beyond the wall to like everybody in this giant walled city, where it's got a lot of things going on from a lot of different sci-fi movies, where it's like there's like a Giver-esque almost quality sort of to it, because we don't know what's out there. I mean, not that the Giver has a lock on that, but
no, but it's like
there's
popular of them.
This walled city where they're very technologically advanced, and they have these warriors to protect them from the whatever.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's actually been kind of forever since anyone's been beyond the wall. So what do we really know?
Right.
And, whatever. And anyway, so Chloe Grace Moretz, Riz Ahmed, and it's the screenplay is by Robert L. Baird, who did Ferdinand and Big Hero 6, and so I mean it's
got a pedigree.
He's done some stuff. The problem with the movie is that it doesn't actually, in my mind anyway, it doesn't really get anywhere, and when it ends, it's almost like it just goes to be continued at you.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really it doesn't answer any of it.
Doesn't resolve any of it.
It doesn't tell you anything about the bigger picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
What it does, I think, is really cool. Maybe for slightly younger audience than you would say of like a general movie.
Yeah.
Because some of it's a little on the silly side or
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
But it's a fun, really interesting story about who she is, who she wants to be, and what she's going to do. And
Yeah.
then she's thrown in with the guy because obviously there's like evil schemes afoot and whatever
Yeah.
happens, and then they're both like on the
Run.
run
Yeah.
and
Right.
whatever. But it just doesn't kind of end in a way that like it really gives you much. It's
Right.
almost like we ran out of money in that.
And so here we go.
And that's where you got like one more day to finish.
Yeah.
So you go,
Right.
this.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, but it's a lot of fun.
I forgot about Nimona. That was early last year too. That was very early in the year. I feel like I saw that. I feel like I saw that in the spring, early spring.
Okay, and then my last one of not on the list is the Royal Hotel, which is just fascinatingly weird movie.
Yeah.
And it's directed by Kitty Green, who did The Assistant a few years ago, which I loved. And in fact, I liked even more than this. That's a great movie if you need something to check out. But it's got Julia Garner, Jessica Henwick.
Yeah.
I guess that must be it. And it's a really weirdly like creepy, I don't know. It's I feel like it's a movie that people are pretty respectably either gonna love or it's just not for them.
Yeah.
Like at all. Like they don't want to watch it. Like there are, there are a lot of movies that just their point is to make you uncomfortable.
Right.
And like sit there and like, the idea of my movie is that it'll be really hard for you to watch this.
Right.
And then people go, well, it's too hard.
Yeah.
And
congratulations.
yeah, you win.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be for everyone, but it's, these two girls, and I don't want to even say too much about the movie because we'll just move on to actual things. But it's the acting is great in it, and the story is actually really pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just that there is a lot of it that's like maybe I don't want to watch that because it's creepy and freaking me out.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't sign up for a horror movie. I mean, it's not anything like that.
No, I know, but it's unsettling.
It's if you accidentally start watching a horror movie, you didn't know it was coming,
Right.
right? You're like,
You're just saying, Rosemary's Baby seems nice. What's going on with this film?
yeah, it's just Rosemary and a baby.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. Okay, we're going to jump into the.
Wait, I got a few just missed.
Oh, do you? Good.
And there's not many. You had a good list of stuff. It was weird because thinking of the list, also looking back, trying to figure out when this year's list started, because this time of year we're watching all kinds of things. And at some point, I draw a line. I'm like, all right, it's not January 1st anymore, but here's where the list starts. It was interesting that A Man Called Otto was the first film I saw this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that feels long ago, but that's because at the end of last year, at the end of 2022, rather, I saw A Man Called Ove because I wanted to see the original.
Right.
And that made my list.
Right.
So in a bad year, A Man Called Otto might have been at the bottom of my best list. These are just missed. Again, it didn't work for certain reasons, and part of that is, strangely, Tom Hanks is too likable. But,
yeah. I got to say, if you're going to bring up A Man Called Otto, I will take the original of that movie like every day of the week.
Every day.
I don't even want that on my list of any kind.
I want people to not know it exists.
Right, because that's on my list, but also don't watch it. Watch the original.
Yeah, and I still say, as moving on, I still say there was a great missed opportunity for Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson to produce this film and put Brendan Gleeson as Otto or Ove.
Yeah.
He's gruff enough and be in the demeanor of unlikable that you have to actually come around full circle to redeem and like him.
Right.
I still remember when we first went to go see it, and the first scene is Tom Hanks in a hardware store being an ass, and people in the audience were tittering with laughter. And I remember leaning into you and like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
They already like him. They already like him because he's Tom Hanks.
Yeah. So at worst, he is like, that cranky guy in your neighborhood.
Right.
that like everyone likes.
Yeah.
Not that everyone stays
Right.
away from
And they like him because he's
right?
cranky,
Right,
not they
right,
stay
right.
away from him.
Yeah.
So that might have made it, but that was my just missed. Dungeons and Dragons just missed. Same things that you said. Tetris just missed. And when I think of Tetris, I also think of Air. And I'm like, I would never have thought films that could have been close would have been about a shoe in a game.
Right.
Like, it was so weird, but the film was fun, way more fun than I thought. Covenant, which I thought in a different time would have been the best VHS release. Covenant is so much fun, but it is limited by it couldn't get more than a 7 no matter what it did.
Right. It's the video store.
It is the best
like
on the video
employee
store,
pick.
right? And that'll be on the top of their shelf. Sisu, again, I love that film. I had it written down as it had the best trailer. I watched that trailer incessantly thinking, I had no idea this film was coming, and Sisu looks amazing. Sisu was fun and then problematic, but still notable. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This is a bit of a misnomer. It didn't just miss, it missed by a bit, but if I made a top 20, it might have been 20. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning just missed. No Hard Feelings just missed. The Jennifer Lawrence film that reminds me that you can still maybe make an 80s comedy and get away with it in today's world. It's really raunchy, really like sort of super bad like, and I love those films. Reptile, the reason it just missed is I not remember much of it, even though I remember liking it.
Wow.
And I thought,
man, you are not going to like my worst list.
That's it.
That right now.
And maybe the biggest of them, well, that's okay. One that just missed my worst was Bottoms. So I'm like, all right, we're going to have one of those lists. The one that just missed that might be the big one is, and I forgot, Saltburn, Past Lives. Past Lives just missed. It did not make my top 10. And whether that means it's 11 or 14, it does not matter because we're going to get to the top 10 now, but it just missed.
Okay.
So,
all right. So we're going to keep with the tradition that we've always had. Where we bounce back and forth. Because
it's like a snake draft if you ever do fantasy sports.
Because otherwise,
right,
one of us is just talking for a really long time, and then
we need to interrupt each other.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So into the top 10. My number 10 is All of Us Strangers, which is also a movie that I'm almost positive we didn't actually cover on the show.
We didn't. Yeah.
And it is, and you know, even though we didn't cover it in the show, we're not going to go like really too long.
We won't go deep here,
on each individual movie that we say, you know, because go back and listen to our things. But even though we didn't, you know, I'm not going to now jump in and like review the movie. It's Andrew Scott, Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell. It's directed by the guy who did 45 Years a few years ago, which was it's like Andrew High. Or however you pronounce it. It seems to me like that's how you pronounce it. And so I'm sorry if it's not. But 45 Years is one of those movies where it was a few years. It was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. But it was like no one ever heard of it except it was on everyone's top 10 list. So, it was one of those beauty movies. And that is actually a really great movie. But for that one, you have to be prepared because it is like the slowest movie.
Yeah.
If you want to make a list of top 10 slowest movies,
boy,
you know, you've got one there. It's really, really slow. It's about people who've been married for 45 years.
No thanks.
And kind of their life and all this stuff. And it's really good. It really is. It's a great movie about people and relationships.
I like films like the Meyerowitz Chronicles.
Everything. It's really, really good, but it's very slow. But All of Us Strangers is, you know, like I said, I'm not, you know, go find the trailer or whatever.
Right.
But everyone in it, it's based on a book. And everyone in it is so solid. It's
that's cool.
Crazy. I don't even particularly like love the story. But still the movie is great. And that in itself is kind of a big thing for me because in order for me to love the movie, usually you have to have a great story. I mean, it's not a bad story by any means. It's a good story, right? and it's a, popular story before the movie even came out. It's a good story. It's just like, it's not my favorite
Sure.
story. It's not
Right.
like an awesome story for me personally, but the
Yeah.
movie is so
Oh, that's cool.
solid. It's really awesomely directed, and you can see like certain similarities of from 45 years because it's like Robert Altman level filming conversations.
Yeah.
Conversations are
They're
hard to
hard.
do,
Yeah.
and really kind of pull them off in a great way.
Yeah.
And they are one of those things where, people don't know how hard they are to do. They don't
Yeah.
seem like they're that hard or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 10. It's a really,
That's
really
cool.
solid movie.
Um, we didn't talk much. I'm going to do this real quick. Just because we rated something a 10 or a 9 doesn't automatically mean it's going to be on our list. And sometimes movies that are 7 and 6 stay on our list for a bunch of different reasons. If we have time, we'll tell you why. But it's really not just a reordering of what we thought were the 10 best all year. That being said, there's no virtue signaling for anything here. Actually, number 10 was Barbie. And when I looked at my list and I thought, okay, what's better, what's worse, and I started moving things around, I thought Barbie had a pretty good shot at staying in the top 10 because it's a great movie. Greta Gerwig did a great job. The cast it did a phenomenal job. It's so much fun to watch a film that is so much. I mean, on paper, Lego movies, Toy Story, like, yeah, sure, I guess, but it's not that. And it was ambitious and tried to do a lot of things. We covered the film. It's one of those that I'll just simply say, if you want to hear what we said at greater length, go listen to that podcast. We've done it, but it came in at 10 for me, and I sat on the list a little bit, and then I often go back just to see if I've changed my mind about anything, and I felt good with Barbie at 10. We're going to keep going. This is the snake part, so I'm going to do 10 and 9, and then we're going to go back to you for 9 and 8, and so on. 9 for me was one that just missed for you. It was Dream Scenario, and the reason it's on my list at 9 is I found myself thinking, even though there were a couple problems with the film, and to its credit, I actually think Dream Scenario takes some chances when it could have just coasted on what was a relatively clever idea. Sort of like a Bean John Malkovich thing. Like, what would life be like if you could actually get inside of John Malkovich's head? Okay,
Right.
if that's the rule of the universe, let's figure it out.
Right.
In this instance, watching Nick Cage become this person who's trying to navigate, and again, I'm not trying to do too much heavy lifting, but there's a lot about cancel culture here, social responsibility. There's a lot of really interesting, fun stuff into a Twilight Zone or an Outer Limits episode of what if everybody on the planet just started dreaming about you?
Some random
Like, just
person.
you. You're not a celebrity outside of, whatever, but you're not right, but you're just a guy. And I thought, what a playful, creative, fun experience to try to explore through all these things. And even though I didn't agree with everything that it tried to do, I did agree with a lot. And I found myself doing the one thing that almost always makes films appear on my list, which is I thought about it after I'd seen it.
Right.
And I don't mean like a couple days later. I mean, I thought about Dream Scenario just yesterday. Now that I was doing my list, but still, it was one of the films that came to mind. And I thought, if you can keep popping up in my head weeks or months, anything, then you've got a good shot at making that list because that's the sign of a good film for me, or a bad film, and you'll make that list too.
Or if you can remember most.
If you can remember most of it, which unlike Reptile, though I love the creepiness of it, and Del Toro, Benicio is great in it. I only remember a couple scenes in it, but I remember really liking it. Doesn't make it. Dream Scenario I thought was so much weirdly fun until it lost me, and then it kind of lost me, but it was still good enough to get on.
Yeah.
So that's my 9.
Yeah. And we did cover that like last week.
A little bit more.
Yeah, because we were like really
right. We were really pushing through
like a full thing. All right, before I get into my 9, because you brought it up, I do want to just like hit again on the idea. We do actually get emails.
Yeah, I love it.
Almost every year.
Do it. Bring them.
Because people don't listen to the podcast every week.
Right.
So we maybe say anything about it at one point or whatever. But yes, like you said, our lists are not like you just rank everything.
2 10s and the rest are 9s.
Yeah. It's like
it's just
because first of all, we don't give a lot of 10s.
Right. It's hard.
And we do give like a lot of 9s and 8s and all that stuff. you can't just listen every week or see what our ratings are every week and go, well, now I know what the
Now I know.
is, right?
Yeah, right.
Because
It doesn't work.
it's just not, and that will actually come up in a different way.
Yeah.
Right now when we do this list,
Yeah.
because we point that out. But some movies are like a 10,
Yeah.
and then there are movies that are a 9 that
Are better.
are higher
That are
on the
better.
list. That
Yeah. It blows
yeah,
people's minds, but sometimes 9s are better than
right.
10s.
We're gonna have to go through
We should do that again.
yeah, now that we have the video, because we haven't done that since
It's been
we
a while.
really first
Yeah.
started. We're gonna have to have an episode probably before too long where it's just how we rate,
How do we do it? What are we
talk about
looking?
our
Yeah. What are we
theories
looking
and all that
for?
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that out of the way.
So you're 9.
My 9 is Passages, which we also did not do
Right.
on the show. And it is it's one I got 2 really that are, usually I think I said this only to you, but not actually on the show at any point. I usually have like 3 movies on my
Yeah.
list that are,
I know.
some little indie thing or
Yeah.
something. And this is not exactly like a little indie thing, but also it's kind of a pretty small indie
It's a
thing.
small. Yeah.
It's directed by Ira Sachs, who not very long ago did a great movie, Love is Strange, with Alfred Molina and John Lithgow. That
Oh
was
yeah.
also just an awesome movie. And he did one more recently called Little Men, which got like a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But this one is it's got Ben Whishaw, and and if you remember, or big movie fan, it's got Adele Exarchopoulos, who
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen in anything for a while. But and she's been doing stuff I just haven't seen.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
she was in Blue is the Warmest Color
Yeah.
kind of a while ago now.
It is a while, but
That came
man.
out, but that was a great movie,
Yeah.
which I think very unfortunately only got attention because there's kind of like a lot of sex in it, and
Yeah.
whatever. And I don't think it got the attention it deserved because she was insanely good in that. She's
Yeah.
really good in this. The movie is about basically a gay couple have their lives kind of upended by suddenly this woman shows up
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and things go a little weird. So because they're in like a great one of the weird things about this movie is that they're just like in a relationship.
Right.
Not like the movie starts, we're about to break up and
Right. Right.
whatever. But it's freakishly well acted, and especially Ben Whishaw, even though he's in every third thing that comes out at
Right.
this point.
Yeah.
um and probably even worse if you're like in England or whatever, he's
Right.
because he does stuff over there too, but he's like in everything and he's great.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Sometimes there are these people you're like, you watch them and you're like,
What the hell?
Where's everyone
Why?
talking about
Right.
this? Because he's so good in everything he's in.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of stuff that is, he's in a lot of roles that are really hard. And
Yeah.
he makes them look easy.
That's awesome.
And he's been in a lot of movies with, you know, great actors
Yeah.
where he's just holding
Holding
his own,
up,
like
right,
he's
right.
whatever.
Making them
He's
work.
really good. And
Yeah.
it's not like, I mean, he gets tons of work, so it's not like no one's paying attention to him or whatever, but he's
Yeah.
not like as big as he should be
Yeah.
or whatever. But he's really great in this. Everyone's really great in it. And Ira Sachs again, knows how to do a conversation, but also, man, knows how to like slap together a scene that you'll if you read the scene,
Yeah.
you'd go, all right, that scene, and then you watch what it becomes.
Yeah.
When he does it, he did this a lot in Love is Strange too. There's a lot of scenes in Love is Strange that if you're like reading the script, you're
Okay.
like, fine.
Yeah.
Then you watch and you're like, oh, so we could make it,
Right.
whatever. Like he just like pulls
That's
out
cool.
some awesome
That's really
stuff
cool.
with people. And anyway, it's great movie.
Hmm.
So that's my 9.
9.
All right, we got to get to 8. My 8 is Past Lives, which just missed, you said.
Yep, just missed mine.
And we did cover that one last week in the podcast, and I'm surprised that you now say like it just missed.
Yeah.
Because you were mean to this movie when we were actually talking. I was like, I gave this one a 10, and you're like, whatever.
Shut up. No. I respect a lot of what it did. I think it really just needed a better editor, or it needed a better hand. I think it was too close to telling its own story, and it still think it's great. I just think it fumbles and does things that it just shouldn't do to make the movie like 5 hours long. Like it just shouldn't be that long. It shouldn't. So
Whatever. Anyway,
no spot for that.
Yeah, so we don't have to really talk
Okay.
about that one. We covered it. And I feel like if I have to, I might as well say something about movies or whatever, but I thought it was just really a surprisingly good just these people and who they are
Yeah.
and how they interacted with each other and where we went with that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work the same for everyone.
Sure, it didn't work for me as much as it did you, but still, I can see why this is different than like a Zero Dark 30 for me. Like, I can see why it makes somebody's list, even if it's high on somebody's list.
Right.
If you came in and was like, man, you're wrong, this is 2, easily, I'd be like, get it. But I don't agree, but I get it.
Right.
I think you could make that argument. Other films, no way. But
all right.
So that's your 8. My 8, I think, would surprise anybody. It's and also another quick side note. You'd think we've never done this before. For the most part, Mark, his lists are almost always any film that he's seen, or they are any film he's seen all year, whether we cover it on the show or not. And I try to, not to in a contrarian way, I just try to cover the films that we have seen for the show, just because I think that's fun too. Like, I like having a bit of a parameter for things. Sometimes that doesn't always work.
Right.
My 8 is an example of that. We never talked about this film, and I had a blast watching it. It's Jake Johnson's Self-Reliance, and it's relatively new on, I think it's Netflix.
Yeah.
I guess I'm in the mood for Dream Scenario and and not Past Lives, but Self-Reliance, where you just have a really weird, funny, awkward situation, and then you run with it for 90 minutes and you go. I will say that it's very much a movie that seems like favored, like, you get to call in, like, if you're buddies with Adam Sandler, like, can you come by for the weekend and you just make an appearance?
Yeah.
Andy Samberg's in it, like, and he's got like basically a day of shooting.
Right.
But the funny thing about the film is the concept is hilarious enough for me, but Jake is got that new girl energy everywhere, and he carries this film. And he wrote it and he directed it. He carries the film not through like an act of will, but just through the glide of charm. Like, he just does it, he has it, and he shows it. And I sat there and I watched the film, and like other films that I will mention, I just kept thinking, because it's based on the premise of a wager. And I thought about, because I'm the guy that makes lists all the time, so I'm like, I think I would take that bet. And I don't know if I would win or not, but that's the guy in me. So anyway, 8 for me. One we didn't cover. I suggest you just check it out. It's only a 90-minute movie. It's breezy and it's fun and it's light and it's just kooky and weird enough to be such a good time.
Yeah,
like, it's worth popping a bag of popcorn to sit down and kill 90 minutes just for the fun of it.
Right. That and Dream Scenario seem like script writing class.
Hell of a drive-in double feature.
It's like you just have to do they
Right.
throw weird crap at you and it's I'll give you
Right.
like 2 sentences
Right.
and you're like, write a script.
Right.
For
And do
this
it.
movie.
Right. Give me
Yeah.
3 good scenes out of that. So that was 8 for me. 7, one that seems ages ago, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I thought that was so much fun, so overloading, so visually stimulating. But sometimes when a movie is just visually like, wow, you get Speed Racer and you're like,
Yeah.
wow. Like, it's not a wow, awesome. It's like, wow, what did I do there for? I'm having a blast with the animated Spider-Verse films, even though I'm not super big on the characters in there. It pulls me in with interesting, thoughtful stories, and it does some mature things, and it just is dazzling visually. It's a fun experience. And I had a blast watching it.
Yeah,
I'm an easy sell. Make sure I have fun with it.
yeah, I liked a lot of that movie, and I liked the first one a lot more than I liked the second one.
Yeah,
The second one, I feel like we've taken the multiverse idea,
I know.
and eventually, we just like gave it to a couple of high school kids and said, I don't
Here
know,
we go.
write
What do you
some
want to
shit,
do?
right?
Yeah,
It's like, you know, you don't make any sense anymore. You're throwing shit out because someone had a random idea
yeah.
of how things happen or
Right.
whatever, and it's just like, come on.
There is one thing going forward for anyone who's new or recurring to the show is, and this isn't a slight. I'm I would say more predisposed to enjoying a comic book film at
Yeah.
this point than
Yeah.
you. That might not have always been true.
No.
But at this point, and I won't say you have hero burnout or fatigue, but I think and you have a really good argument about being like, come on, we did it. It's great. Let's do other things. And I'm
Yeah,
just like,
so,
let's throw
if
it.
you're new here you randomly found us on YouTube,
Yeah.
and we get some new people to watch us. Yeah, I mean, as we said already, you got to like know your critics, and you want
Right.
to know why you're listening to these people. And I mean, that is kind of a thing. For me, when it was like Iron Man,
Yeah,
the
right.
first Captain America,
Yeah, early on.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
These movies are like surprisingly
Yeah.
good. I was like, holy crap. And
Yeah.
then I remember like when we saw the first Avengers movie,
Yeah.
we both were like,
Man,
all right.
look at this.
And now it's like Doctor Strange is fighting evil itself or
Right.
whatever. And it's, everything, like I say frequently on the show, everything has to be bigger next week.
Yeah, I know.
It's like you're watching a Superman show in like the 50s or something. And it's like we start out, we're like
Criminal,
catching bank robbers.
Yeah, right.
But every week it has to be
Yeah.
worse thing. And so now it's 2 years later, and we have to save the whole planet. We have to save the whole universe. We have to save the whole
multiverse. Yeah. And we're always sending low powered heroes.
Everything is always tougher and tougher.
I know.
And,
I know.
I mean, come on, you got to like move sideways at some point and not.
Well, that's why this is across the Spider-Verse, not through.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Did you?
So that was it. That's 7.
7?
Yeah. You're 7.
All right. So my 7 is The Taste of Things, which is my other, we didn't cover it and no one knows what it is.
Yeah.
So,
this is to sell it.
It's Juliette Binoche. And then don't leave hateful comments, but there are a lot of other people in it. Not going to name them all.
Right. That's okay.
The vast majority of people won't know who they are anyway.
Yeah.
But it is, Juliette Binoche is like the name and draw of lots of other things that lots of people have seen.
Yep.
No slight to the other people who are, because they're fantastic in the movie. They're great.
Right.
Anyway, but it is this story of Juliette Binoche is like this. She's a cook, chef, whatever. I don't want to offend chefs or whatever, because don't call a cook a chef or
don't do
whatever.
it.
I don't know.
Don't.
But she works for this guy and has for 20 years, and he's the chef or whatever. And it's like their relationship, and it's like a really weirdly slow kind of like nothing really happens.
Yeah.
It's just their relationship and their lives together, and they've been in these roles, like I said, for like 20 years. And I mean, aliens don't show up or anything. There's like
no Jedi, no nothing, no superpower
nothing
kids
going on.
Yeah.
It's just these people and their relationship and what happens, and kind of, not literally like looking back on their lives, but like looking back on their lives and, whatever. But she's so good. She's just great in everything she's in.
Right.
And she's been in so many movies now that she has been so many different things.
Yeah.
That you're like, I mean,
right.
It's like, this movie, in a very weird way, which I don't have time to explain and makes no sense, reminds me of Ian McKellen and Mr. Holmes,
Yeah.
where
Yep. Think about that a
where
bunch.
it's really like, nothing happens in that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, it's Sherlock Holmes and
Right.
it's there's a case
He
and
gets
he's
breakfast,
old and
right.
sometimes he doesn't remember things
Yeah.
and we have to solve the whatever.
Yeah.
But really nothing happens in
Right.
that movie.
Right.
It's like,
I know.
he's playing with bees and
Yeah, right.
he's like sitting there having
He's just
toast
having his breakfast, man.
and he's so
He's
amazing
so
in it,
good.
right?
He's so good.
And in no other way is this movie like that movie, but
Yeah.
it made me think of that movie just because she is so good. And like I said, everyone else is too. Everyone in the movie is fantastic, but
Yeah.
she is so good in like these like meaningless things
Huh.
where just like
Right.
Mr. Holmes, where
Right.
it's like this scene is like 5 minutes long and nothing happened,
Right.
and yet you're like, damn, like
Right.
he's so good at it,
Yeah.
and it's the same with her,
That's
and
cool.
it is actually, even though I'm totally not selling this at all, it's a really interesting story of their relationship
Right.
and kind of them, kind of like trying to work themselves out as individuals
Right.
and as people in this relationship
Yeah.
and all,
Mm.
whatever. Anyway, it's
The
a
taste of things.
really, really fun movie. Even though it's kind of it's weird to describe it
It's
as
sort of hard to
fun.
sell something like that. It's almost like you're saying the taste of past lives. Like
Yeah.
in a way, like that kind of film is either someone in our audience, whoever is watching or listening, like you had them at Juliette Binoche.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just not another, blow them up, rescue the princess kind of thing. And others, you're like, man, there's no way you're getting me to watch this. What?
Right.
Nothing happens. Good luck. So
Yeah.
I think it sounds cool.
Anyway, it's really, really crazy
So
good.
6.
So my 6, and here's another one that we didn't cover, and I'm not going to talk about too much. The
Yeah.
Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, man. I
Which
really wanted to see that.
might well be my favorite suddenly
Right.
of uh, his movies, and I love all his
Yeah,
movies
I know.
and always have. But
God, I wanted to
is
see that.
so weirdly like powerful, and I think the thing that really
That's
strikes
cool.
me, especially because I have lots of kids who
Sure.
also
Right.
love all his movies.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is so strange and like uh sets the movies apart really is the things that happen in the movies where it seems like this is not a powerful story at all.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, here's some weird stuff. And like some of them are more for kids than others. And some
Yeah.
of them are not really like for young kids. And,
Yeah. Right.
but not everything is Ponyo or Howl's Moving
Right.
Castle or
Right.
whatever, which, nothing wrong
Watch
with that
those.
either.
Watch those right
Like,
now if
they're
you
awesome
haven't.
too.
Yeah.
But like, for example, like Howl's Moving Castle, you watch that and you get like, I guess, especially if you watch it for the first time, you get like halfway through and you're like, I mean, okay, this is like cool and
Right.
stuff. And then you get to the end and you're like, what just happened?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
well, damn, like it actually is like all
Right.
this stuff is happening. And
Yeah.
this movie is a lot like that, even though, I mean, it's a very different kind of thing. It's a much more obvious story we're telling, and it's I guess it's a much more obvious kind of scenario that we're like thrust in.
Yeah.
But I'll be damned if it's not uh, probably going to end up over time being my favorite
Yeah. Wow.
amongst a group of movies that are all
Yeah.
my favorites that I love all this. It's just so well pieced together, and I think that like this and all his movies probably
Yeah.
are just examples of the best part of being an animated movie, where if you're kind of doing an animated movie right, what you get out of it that you don't in a lot of other movies is that you just have to be making it for so damn long.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
right? Then
Yeah.
you
Right.
get to go, no, it's like you have to think about the
Yeah.
movie forever. And if you're not just trying to knock out some, thing because I'll get some kid money or,
Right.
whatever for animated
Yeah.
movies, then like I said, the best part of doing that kind of a production is that this movie just so obviously
Yeah.
is something that, we got every second exactly the way we want it.
Right.
And, anyway, that's my 6.
6. Um, 6 for me, a little bit of a surprise. I also thought this was going to pop up on my list, and it's Air. It's the corporate film about how Nike landed Michael Jordan for Air Jordan sneakers, and you tell me that on paper, and I'm gonna just be like, yeah, that might be an interesting documentary,
Yeah.
30 minutes, but you give me a 2-hour film. I don't care how star-studded it is with Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, they were in everything together. You run the gamut with Viola Davis, who, in a strange way, actually playing Michael Jordan's mother, and in her scenes where she's really just on a stage somewhere talking on a landline phone.
Right.
Which, if the kids don't know, that's the thing with the long cord. Those are the ones that make the film almost like remarkable. She's so good in these things, and there's a fun thing where Ben Affleck, who directed it, said, we really would love to get Viola, but we're not going to get Viola Davis. And when she said, yeah, but I kind of wish I had more to do, and they had to write more things for her to do. That's just the fun stuff behind the film. We covered Air. It was a late spring, early summer kind of film. So people can, I'm not going to go on too long about that because also we have a running time too. But I thought about it. I rated it high, and I thought, when I go back over my list, I look and I see, well, I rated it high then. Do I still feel that way now? Yeah, I guess I do. And if I don't think about it the way I did, like I say, I would think about other films that pop up from time to time. I still think, like, what was it about it? Did I enjoy it as much? Does it still stand up? Yeah, okay, then it has a shot. So I put it in because it felt pretty comfortable at 6. 5 for me was a film I can't believe we didn't cover at all, but it was Wes Anderson's Asteroid City.
Oh, yeah.
I had so much fun with Asteroid City, but not. Wes's films are changing a bit, or at least because he doesn't make a film like Steven Soderbergh every 7 hours. Soderbergh puts out a film left and right. He's probably put out 2 since we started this.
Right.
Wes Anderson really puts a lot of stuff in, and it is 100% a Wes Anderson film. Everything about Wes Anderson is in this, and I'm often watching a Wes Anderson film thinking, the end is going to be what it is, but if it grabs me in the first 15, 20 minutes, it's probably going to hold me for a while because I know the cast that's coming in. Right. All the cast in this is just having so much fun being Wes Anderson characters. It's an interesting sort of Scheherazade where there's a story within a story within a story. Right. Asteroid City is about play and the actors who are playing them are being filmed, while there's also like a setup for how that's also happening behind the scenes. It's just meta introspection kind of thing. I ate it up. I had a blast. I haven't seen Scarlett Johansson be this good in so long. I love seeing Jason Schwartzman. I'll watch Ed Norton in anything. Adrian Brody. Like, there's so many people in this film, and the kids. Sorry, I mean, not over talking, but the kids in so many Wes Anderson films, from like Moonrise Kingdom on. Not even there, but just in his films. They're precocious, and they're monsters, and they're adorable, and they're apprehensive and repulsive and endearing. Little witches. I'm like watching this film, and I'm like, God damn, give me a 6-episode series of just them playing in the desert. And the setting of Asteroid City itself with its description, and then as it pans and you see there's one gas station, there's one motor inn, there's an on-ramp that never got finished. I'm 100% all in on this film. It just didn't do everything Wes Anderson best the way that I love, and that's why it's in the middle of my pack.
Yeah.
Man, I loved Asteroid City.
Yeah. There's parts in this where as you see that, when you see the setting,
yeah,
and it's almost like it looks like, a set from a
It
play.
totally looks like
Like,
one.
and they're walking
The setting.
around in it
Yeah, yeah.
like it's, real life. And
Right.
you can see the on-ramp,
Love that.
that's in danger of blowing over the
You're
wrong
right.
way
You're right.
because it's
Yeah.
not a real thing,
Yep.
but they're walking around. And there are parts in this movie where Schwartzman
Yeah. Yeah.
is like he'll like walk onto the scene and it's like he could have been animated.
Yeah. I know.
Like
I know.
he's so dialed into this exact screwball
Yeah.
character that he is
Yeah.
that sometimes you're like, I mean, is there actually a person there? Like
Right.
he's so good
This.
at being a Wes
Yeah.
Anderson
He is.
person,
Yeah.
right? But there are some times where he is like he almost like just dissolves into the set and
Yeah.
becomes like a cardboard cutout of himself, just like everything
Yep.
else. It's yeah,
And quickly before I drop it over to you for yours as well, just watching things like Tom Hanks being sort of new to Wes Anderson's world, man, I'll be damned if he doesn't fit in. And you get Bryan Cranston, who is the narrator, and just has like some goofy, weird scenes where he's still the narrator, but it's just
Right.
like you get to see that this is like the pay what you want preview before the play really opens. Like they still not quite hitting their marks right,
Right.
but it's hilariously Wes Anderson. And I miss that.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good dose for it. So that's my fifth.
That's your okay. Did you two?
I did two. I did six. I did Air and then Asteroid City. So you're up to five.
All right. My 5 is Barbie,
Okay.
which we don't have to talk about again.
Yeah, right.
Because you
We got
already had it. I was really surprised by Barbie, even though kind of like you said about Air, right? It's like on paper, whatever. And the original on paper of Barbie,
Yeah.
is like I'm like whatever,
Yeah.
which is the same as like the Lego movie. When you like
Right.
first find out they're making a movie about that, and you go, oh, "Great, a Lego movie." That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
And Barbie was the same thing because it was like Barbie movies coming out, and I'm like, hooray, my life is complete now, right? But then
Right.
it's like
Right.
everyone who's in it and
Yeah.
all the people who signed on for it. Greta Gerwig is going to be directing it. And you're like, well, what the hell's
Right. And I'm like,
happening
wait,
now?
what? Yeah. I guess it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be something, right?
Yeah.
And even Ryan Gosling is,
Man.
when he is great, right?
Yeah.
But also, even apart from that, if there's, there are a few things where he's not great. But most things, I think he's pretty great, right? But even apart from whether or not he's good, he doesn't sign up for a lot of stupid things
That's true.
where
He
it's
picks
garbage, right?
killer things. Yeah.
Even if they seem like they might be weird, like Drive or
Or
whatever.
Blade Runner. The new. Yeah. I mean, just weird
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Anyway, but he
Yeah.
is so good in it, and if you want to listen to us talk about this a lot,
Yeah.
we not only covered the movie a lot, but then we had to cover the Oscar
Oh yeah, the
debacle,
kerfuffle. Yeah. Yeah.
because I felt slightly responsible for it. But anyway, so my 5
You
is
should.
Barbie, and
Right. That's cool.
It's really, really good.
Yeah,
So
that's
my
cool.
5 is Barbie. My
4.
4 is Asteroid City.
Shut up. That's awesome. The way you looked at me, I thought, man, my list is really out of nowhere for him this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it still probably is, but awesome.
Well, it is.
I loved it.
Yeah, I'm a Wes Anderson fan.
Yeah.
And not only am I a Wes Anderson fan, but even some of his movies that, even Wes Anderson fans are only like, yeah, this one's pretty good.
Right.
I like those ones better.
Me too.
Than,
I love
than-
those ones
like,
better.
I'm a really huge Wes Anderson fan. And not only am I a big Wes Anderson fan, but even sometimes when the movie is not necessarily like awesome or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, damn, the attack.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Like just the fact that you're
going for it. You're going for it. Yeah.
When whatever. Anyway,
yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, pretty much everything you said, I really agree with. I love the fact that it's like so screwball in so many ways.
Yeah.
And the best thing about this one, because it doesn't always work for me
Right.
with Wes Anderson, is what works really well this time around, because I feel like he's kind of mastered some things more
Yeah.
and doing the same kind of ideas that are like creeping in
Yeah.
through all his movies. But the thing that's great, I think, about this movie in that particular way is the things where all of a sudden there's I'm going to add this weird thing,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, what do I need that weird thing for? And then later you're like,
Got it.
right.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
There are all these, characters, the weird scenes where it's like, now suddenly this is what we're talking about. You're like,
Right.
damn, man, I like was just getting a handle on this over here. And
Yep.
now all of a sudden it's like this person pops up.
Hmm.
We're just, watching Scarlett Johansson through the
Right.
windows
Right.
where she's just sitting there and
Perfecting
we're
that
just
stare.
staring at
Yeah.
each other from our like Havana
Yeah.
hotel
Right.
room
Yep.
things. But there's we throw in all these weird characters. We got
Yeah.
Tom Hanks popping up. We've got lots of stuff where it's like we think we know what the story is, and then there's other stuff happens, and you're like, why do I need that for the
Right.
story? I don't
Right.
like, and you even watch it, and like at some points you're like kind of getting irritated because it's scaring you,
Right.
right? You're like, oh, this is gonna all fall apart,
Yeah.
like because he's gonna go off on some
He's gonna
tangent
have
for
to.
like half
Yeah.
an hour,
Yep.
and yet it just all kind of sandwiches together, and
Leave
but
Schreiber's in it. Steve Carell. Like, there's so many people we didn't even mention, and
right,
all their supporting characters are, like you said. I'm like, what? Stop distracting me with this. And then suddenly, like, there's a moment where Leave looks to his kid who's been driving him nuts with these dares, and he goes, What is your problem?" And then you get this moment that hits both of them, and you're like, wow, I did not. I mean, it's not I didn't
right,
see it coming, but I didn't see it coming. And then suddenly there's like a weird space fight, and you're like,
right,
and the fact that he's courageous enough to know the vision where you get a scene like you're watching a play, and then they cut and they tell you this is act 3, this is act
right,
4. Normally in bad hands, that would be so clumsy and ineffective, and it would break whatever momentum you have. What it does is it gives you a chance to just take a breath and be like, all right, now let's go. And it's perfect. Not a perfect movie, but
yeah,
that's perfect. Oh, that's great. I'm psyched that
fairly
was on
close.
your list.
All right,
Right, so that was your 4. My 4, I actually feel like these two could switch places when I see them next. And again, by that I mean my 5th, which is Asteroid City. I could actually have it for. Right now, 4 is Oppenheimer. I've only seen both of them once, and I like them both for very different reasons. I know there's a lot of backlash against Oppenheimer, and I get it. This is almost like where Past Lives is on someone's list, and I'm like, I didn't necessarily see it, but I get it. I understand. I love Christopher Nolan's films almost all the time. And again, we've talked about this because we just did Oppenheimer, and I'm not going to go on long about it because of that. But kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about the parts of the film that I liked the strongest were thankfully big parts. It wasn't just a fleeting scene here or fleeting there. The scenes that I didn't like were sometimes very fleeting scenes. Um, it does a bit of a trick that isn't fair sometimes, because I think if people did see it in the theaters and you saw the big screen and you heard the rumbling and you saw the visuals, I think the band-aid for bad storytelling is usually just giving an experience. And I think the experience of seeing Oppenheimer is very powerful, and I think that might Jedi mind trick people in a way, thinking the movie is better than that. I actually didn't see it on a big screen. I saw it on a small screen at home and still had a blast with it. Still thought about it. Still think the performances were really strong. My favorite parts of the movie have very little to do with what others think were the best scenes. For me, it's mostly the politics and the intrigue and the backstabbing and the real story about it. And it cracks me up because people, if they stay around long enough, they'll know, like you said in the beginning, you're not a big fan of biopics.
right.
One of the things you hate almost as much as anything else is when the movie starts and it just says based on true events. And I keep wondering, well, why aren't we watching a biopic that opens like
Well,
based on true events? Like it should be the double whammy for you. But
it's
anyway,
mostly okay if you had a movie that's actually
oh, I know,
based on true
I know.
events. What
Um,
I hate are horror
I know
movies
that say based on true events. There was a guy and he bought a house. Okay, now go. So anyway, when I see these things again, I can't imagine when I'll see Oppenheimer again because it's very, very long. I could imagine watching Asteroid City again with little ease. I actually flipped these. But when I made the list, I saw it and I thought it, and I stuck with it. So that was my 4. 3 for me is American Fiction, and we did a show on that too not that long ago. So I won't say too much about this. It had a couple problems for me. They weren't huge. They were just annoying. If it didn't have those couple problems, I would have had a lot harder time trying to figure out where in the top 3 this film was. It's that good.
Right.
Sterling K. Brown steals every scene he's in easily and effortlessly, though I'm sure he put a lot of work into it. I'm not trying to take away from his talent and his dedication to it, but it's not just him. Everybody in the cast is just nailing it, and it was a blast to see. It was really fun, and it's, on some level, because it's about black authors, black characters, the black experience. Like, I'm really an observer there watching it. Felt like I had a blast watching it. It's so great.
Yeah, Sterling K. Brown is, especially in this movie, and we talked about this when we covered the movie, but especially in this movie, he really is like, you almost feel like you're insulting him in a way.
Yeah.
But he really seems like he's so good
Yeah.
that it almost potentially, I guess, to like your average viewer, makes it seem like he's not as good.
Right.
You know
Because
what I mean?
it's so effective.
Because it just seems like, well, that's just him.
Right. He's just doing it. He's
Like,
just
it's
reading the
just
lines, right?
automatic, right?
Oh,
Like,
man.
he's
It's
just
so
like, he's
good.
playing himself,
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
He is, especially in this, it just, I think, shines
Yeah.
through in this particular movie, even though, like I said, he's great and everything. But in this one, everything he does just so seems like, like we're just filming his life or
Right.
whatever. Like,
Right.
it just
It's
really is.
effortlessly working.
He doesn't have to try at all, because that's just him
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, it's so, everything is like so on point, and he feels so like just natural and
Yeah.
like at ease in being this character.
Yeah.
It's there's some things about acting
Yeah.
that it, it's like the better you do it, the less
Right.
most people will think that it's all hard.
Hard. Yeah. Right. Because you're making it look so easy.
Right.
They say it in writing and they say it in acting specifically, where if you know your character so well, you can drop them in any scene and they will portray themselves faithfully.
No, but they do, right?
I believed that Sterling's character, you put him in anything. If there was an ad lib scene or they're just like, we're going to film this, go, he would nail that. And he's the reason, with his other nominees, why the best supporting actor category is the only one I have no clue about for the Oscars.
Right.
Everybody in there is killers, every one of them. And I'm like, I don't know who's going to win, because I mean, they all deserve it, but they all look like they're monsters in their films. So anyway, that was my
All right.
3.
So it's my turn.
Your 3.
All right. My 3 is also American Fiction. So
Easy.
So
Easy. All right. See, we're not
like
so
that.
different.
Yeah. Except the things that are
Different
on your list and
Yeah.
not even on mine.
I know. That's fine. We're
All
different.
right. So yeah, my 3 is American Fiction. My 2 is The Holdovers,
Oh,
which we also
right.
just did that fairly recently. Paul Giamatti is insanely good.
Yeah.
And now everything about the world is becoming a blur. So if you're if you are a person who's new to our show and haven't listened to the podcast before, because I always say this, basically like November 1st until we are done with all our lists,
Yeah.
the whole thing's like a blur, right?
Yeah.
I have to watch so many movies, and plus I got a lot of like TV I try to cover.
Yeah.
Then there's awards. I have to
You vote.
I have to make
you've
my
got
nomination
tons
for
of
the
stuff.
Critics' Choice. I have to vote for the Critics' Choice, and it's just seriously trying to watch everything all together. So like I forget like my own. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti got the Critics' Choice for this.
Yeah.
He is so good in this, but he is good in this in like a slightly different way, that I would say, than like we were just talking about Sterling K. Brown, right?
Yeah.
Or anyone else in American Fiction, right?
Right.
Everyone is great in that. But he is so good in this because I feel like, anyway, to a certain extent, I don't feel the same way about his character, right? Like, you could just drop Paul Giamatti in like Scene with Aliens,
Right.
and he's this character, and it's like that. Like he's just good differently,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't exactly know how to explain it, but he really like takes this character uh in like kind of his own directions, right? Like this is not necessarily exactly the guy on paper,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like Sterling K. Brown, like read that character and was like, boom, I'm that character now.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti was like, read that character and went, uh, yeah, it's actually this character.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like,
He,
yeah, it's a little bit different than that character. Like,
this might be a distinction without a difference. For me,
yeah,
Sterling K. Brown, drop him in, like I said, any scene, he's going to nail that scene. Paul Giamatti's character, Paul Hunneman in The Holdovers, he basically is a character who will likely, I mean, he's not a 20-sided die. He's like a 3-sided die. He's got a very limited response set. Paul Giamatti can tell me with exhausting detail why Paul Hunham is who he is.
right, right.
I think that's the difference for me. Like they're not the same character. Sterling has much more fluidity in all the different things that he's going to react to. Giamatti's going to react in one of just a couple of ways, but man, he knows exactly every life event that made him that guy.
Right.
And it comes through. It shows. Like I absolutely believe.
And I think this one also won me over in general a lot because the way the story gets told to you and the way that the characters, including Paul Giamatti's character, but also the kid, and kind of, I guess, the character that is like the situation we're in.
The thing.
Whatever.
A holdover.
All of that like came through so well in the storytelling.
Yeah.
Where I feel like the movie for me got some like level of difficulty points, right?
Yeah.
Because this movie could have been garbage.
Oh yeah. This could have been stepping in crap everywhere.
This could have been like a ugly, stupid movie where, like that scene. I constantly think about this movie, and we're not going to go on and on. But when I think about this movie, I always think about that movie, the scene where he runs into the guy from his past.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, that scene could have sucked so bad.
Yeah.
And there are like 50 movies that you could talk about how they have a fairly similar scene that all suck.
Right.
Where
yeah.
It's almost like a weird, bad cliche of like accidentally running into somebody who knows who you are.
Right.
Then you have to pretend you're something else.
Right.
And then you're lying to
and you're doing more and being,
whatever. And that scene could have been so garbage. It's like a little microcosm of like the whole movie for me.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to get that to be even just believable, much less good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And there's a lot of the stuff that happens in the movie that's very much the same.
Yeah.
All the guys early on in the dorm, like all razzing on each other.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, how many times have we seen that? And it was
for sure
ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
And
right.
Anyway, that's my 2, and we won't go on forever about it.
2 for me. Okay, so it's 2 and 1 for me. 2 for me. This is pretty. It's the Holdovers.
Look at you.
Everything we just said. I know all the cheat sheets. Everything we just said. Again, the movie has a couple problems, and not just to look for problems. I don't always do that. There were a couple weird things. The biggest one we talked about it, and please listen to the show if you like the film. It's just a bunch of things that the story makes happen because the story needs it to happen. Like there were a lot of holdovers. There were 5. There needs to be 1. So we're just going to make some parent swoop in and take all the refugee kids away because we need to get rid of them and COVID won't work. I'm a sucker for films like this. I'm a New England kid. I love winters. I think stories about boarding schools are sort of amusing. You watch Wonder Boys and this back to back, and I've got a hell of an afternoon. Like that's the kind of happiness I get when I watch films like this. So it hit a sweet spot, and it never left. It's great. He's great. He's so much fun watching in the film because you think, oh, he's just this guy, he's the grumpy principal teacher thing, and he's more than that. And again, it's not like a Dead Poet Society riff. It's very different than that movie, but I understand why people say it's like that movie.
Right.
Give it a chance. It's great. Number one for me, and this is easy. This was the easiest thing all year. It's sort of fun how our list is very similar. It's
Yeah.
Poor Things.
Yeah.
I mean, Poor Things is single-handedly the best thing I saw all year. It's the one film that I kept thinking about ad nauseum over and over again, and not just because I love Mark Ruffalo and he's playing such a character. Listening to him do interviews about it is hilarious. It's not just that I've been saying Yorgos Lanthimos, and I just recently, like last night, learned that it's Yorgo. Like the S is silent, so I got to try to teach myself to do that. I almost did it again. It's not just that I love Lanthimos's films. I do. It's not just that I think that Emma Stone, and I said this, I think I said this to you, and maybe you pushed back on it. I think Emma Stone is this generation's Jennifer Jason Leigh. She's courageous. She's talented. It started off in like sort of a disposable kind of film that people just looked at and maybe could have written her off. Every single character she's in has been absolutely fluidly different from one another. You look at The Favorite, you look at Cruella, you look at Poor Things, you look at La La Land. She's different every single one of them, and she's making big, brave choices, and she's committing through with them, and she's nailing it every single time. And I think, like Yorgo, she's getting better. I think every single outing she gets better, and I think he does too. And man, I can't wait to see more of them. But I did not stop thinking about Poor Things for all kinds of things, and then 15 things I didn't mention, which is it's a weird, wacky sort of sci-fi horror story, and Willem Dafoe is crazy and awesome, and the look of everything is amazing, and the comedy is amazing. Just go watch it. It's the best thing out there.
Yeah. And it's not even spoiling anything. It's also mine.
You told the audience. I remember it was like October. You're like, so we're doing Poor Things, and I'll let you know right now. This is my number one film of the year, and I was like, what?
It was
I didn't see anything yet.
Yeah, and going through the year, I always do something like that.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes I'm more serious than others. And
yeah, right. No, that's true.
And speaking of Emma Stone and Cruella, I did the same thing with Cruella, and that came out in like March that year or something. And I was like,
I remember early on.
It's going to be hard for this to not be
you said
like
that
my number one. And then it wasn't. But
no, but it was still close. But when I saw it, I thought, God damn, look at that. Like now I get why you're like, it's possible. But right now, I don't see anything coming from this.
Yeah, Poor Thing. Like you said, it's got all the things you want in a Lanthimos movie.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen The Favorite yet, go see that.
Go see that.
Also was awesome. But it's so interesting, and this is like The Favorite. This is not like his original writing,
right?
Like some of his earlier things.
Yeah.
But man, he takes this and like still makes it kind of his. And there's so many things, like you could watch this movie like so many times.
Yeah.
And maybe not, you're not like seeing hidden secret things, but maybe just like getting more out of something.
Yeah.
When she finally faces up to like, she has this like Buddha moment.
Yeah.
Where, she's been in her world, and then she sees the poor people.
Right.
And they go from like their semi-literal ivory tower
right,
and walk down the stairs that don't actually reach far enough to get to the poor people.
Right. What a metaphor.
Like it's all, you're like, what is happening? And even we talked about this movie a lot, so go check out our episode covering this one. But there's so much stuff like everything that has to do with Frankenstein, everything that has to do with her thoughts and expressions on sexuality and morality, and this whole like basically children's story about what if somebody didn't have to grow up. Like what if somebody didn't get raised, but just got thrown into being an adult. All of the stuff that you work with that, and him doing everything in weird ways, even just some weird camera tricks
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I said this when we did it, like at first I thought, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
And then he does it some more and you go, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I'm starting to get this.
but
Yeah.
the first time he does this like little pinhole
Yeah.
look, and you're like, I mean, did you like flip a thing and that
Right.
accidentally
Come on.
happened
Yeah.
and you
I'm like,
left it?
grow up.
Because
It's your
it's
film.
goofy,
I
right?
know it does.
When it
Yeah.
first happens, it seems goofy.
Yeah.
But every step of her like journey
Yeah.
is so weirdly cool. And the only thing that I didn't like about it, and so here's the thing, right? There are other movies in this list that I give a 10,
Right.
and this one I gave a 9,
Yeah.
and yet it's number 1.
Right.
So
There you go.
there's that happening. There are things that I didn't like. I didn't like what happens when you get to the very end, right? Like the last big thing, and I'm not going to spoil the movie or anything. But there's a part where it's kind of like, the first movie ended and we just went, slammed on the brakes
Right.
and went,
Right. Yep.
and we're in this other
Yeah. Story. Yeah.
well,
Same
like
characters
totally in
and
this other thing. And I'm like, man, that needs to happen better.
Yeah.
I need to get there in a better way than just putting the clackboard up,
Right.
going, boom, now
Yeah.
we're in this or
Right.
whatever. So I had problems with it.
Yeah.
I had a few problems with it. I had a few problems with some scenes that weren't doing as much as they should have, and then did it for a really long time. And I'm like,
Can't think of one. Yeah.
yeah, I don't.
Let's
But
go. Yeah.
overall,
Yeah.
man, it was the most just pure filmmaking
Yeah.
of Brian to do exactly what movies should be trying to do
Yeah.
way more, right?
Yeah.
Just like,
Totally.
a lot of his movies.
Sure.
And like Wes Anderson movies.
Yep.
Where it's like we're trying to do something. There are a lot of scenes in that, if just strictly from the viewpoint of make a scene in a movie that can actually just like kick your ass.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Anyway, but like we said, you can go back and get all
Listen to
our
the big
thoughts for
ones.
a really long time.
And go and see it. It really is. I mean, see it and then listen to us and argue with us or tell us no or yes or it's worth it because it's fun and it's compelling. It's sort of captivating enough. So
Yeah,
check it out.
definitely go see it. All right, that's our show. Thank you for
And
tuning in, and we will be back next week with the worst.
yeah,
And in 2 weeks, we will have our own awards that
Right.
we've also been doing for probably at least a
It's a
decade.
while.
We haven't been
Yeah.
doing it the whole time.
No.
But our awards are the Can't Win Awards.
Yep.
Where we
honor
that sounds good.
award we gift. Yeah.
We honor the like film, director, actor, actress, and screenplay
Yeah.
that just for whatever reason
Right.
are not going to get nominated for any other award.
Yeah.
So just to
Pity prize.
throw out some love.
Yeah.
The pity prize.
Pity prize.
Just to throw out some love to a broader array of things.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for tuning in to
Yeah.
our first episode on video.
Yeah.
Or if you're not, because you're just listening.
You're old school.
Yeah. You're just listening to us on the regular podcast.
That's right.
Well,
On the AM.
thanks.
Yeah.
For listening to us there.
Yeah.
We'll see you again next week. That's it for now. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.